And salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is still doing well, and welcome to today's second bonus. Before we jump into it, just a couple quick links. As many of you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, channel membership, and the merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. Links to Patreon, PayPal, and channel membership is in the description below. Merch displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman, Frightening Encounters, Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated, and produced by me, Jeff Nadolny. Those audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support the channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe. It does not cost a cent. Click the like button, takes half a second. If you don't want to miss out on any of the informative uploads that I put out daily, click that bell icon, and folks, please leave a comment and share the video. Why? Well, because all these things really do help this channel to continue to grow and go. They definitely do matter, and they are appreciated. And with that, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's jump in to today's second bonus, shall we? I spent about an hour and a half talking to a gentleman that I had never knew was a subscriber of mine. I had never seen him comment. Apparently, he never has commented. And he wanted to share, finally, an experience that has haunted him for years. You will see why it's haunted him. And this experience that he shared, he said it was time to share because of all of the things that are occurring nowadays. The drying up of the Euphrates, the Andrew Dawson case, and something that Victor said 2 to 3 years ago. And at that point, he had me I was like, wait, what? And these are the notes. He didn't want to come on the show. He still not fears for his safety. He doesn't want to bring attention to himself, and he's afraid that if he comes on and he speaks, that he will be identified, because he's a former sheriff deputy for Churchill County, Nevada. And these are all the notes that I took. I mean, I took notes upon notes with this guy, just silently sitting, periodically asking questions. Now, Churchill, Nevada is known for one thing and one thing only. And that would be the Lovelock Caves with the Lovelock Giants. Now, if you don't know that story, I will share that story with you here shortly. But I'll share the experience or the history of it after I share this gentleman's experience with you guys. So this experience, or it was his experience, but it was an experience that happened to a group of teenagers, teenage men, boys, ranging from the ages of 16 to 18 years old in 1999. And then after their experience, it went on to his and his fellow deputies' experience. And it's pretty nuts because we'll talk about the Lovelock Cave Giants after, which is an actual scientific find. There actually was giant skeletons found in these caves in Nevada. And there's a Native American there's Native American lore about these giants fighting with Native Americans back in the day. So not only is there this one cave, but in this area, it's like a sprawled out kind of desert area. There's some wildlife areas that are called wildlife refuge, but not like we think, or I think when I think of a wildlife refuge, I think of like the Adirondacks or, like Cadiz Cove, Smoky Mountains, very woodsy, dense woods where animals you'd think, but this is, there are some desert-like plants out there, but it's nothing like what I think of a wildlife refuge would look like. There's also a ton of caves in this area. So you've got the Lovelock Cave. There's probably, he said, upwards to 40 small little caves, openings, but when you get into them, they eventually like get bigger so you can stand up in them. There's a cave called Humboldt Cave, Salt Cave, Hidden Cave, just these multiple caves. And there's like a natural kind of occurring salts that are there. And there's like mines. I guess there's a lake called Humboldt Lake out there as well. So when you look at a map of this area, you literally can see the kind of cave openings. They just there's like clusters of them all throughout this area. And what he heard during his years of living in this area, he lived in a city called Fallon, which is in Churchill County. Supposedly, these caves are connected by a system of tunnels that are under the ground. And he said, I would not doubt that there are these, just sprawling cave systems with tunnels that connect. And, if there are cryptids and reptilians, this would be a place for these things to hide. And, I started saying, hey, there's caves all throughout the country and throughout the world where I truly believe that these cryptids, Dogman, Bigfoot, crawlers, whatnot, they take advantage of these naturally occurring things. Like, I've heard of Bigfoot using lava tubes in Washington State. So spelunking is something that's done in that area. It's frowned upon, especially now. And it was even back then in 1999. He has since retired, and he was older. He was not a young deputy when this occurred. He was in his 40s at the time. So he's in his middle to late 60s right now. He didn't tell me his age. I did the math. Because 99, we're talking, 20-something years ago. And he said he was in his 40s at that time. So, apparently it was a spring, early summer day. And these group of kids went out to the area. There's two main roads in the area, Highway 95 and 80. Veterans Memorial Highway, and I think the other one is Eisenhower or something like that, he said. But Highway 80 and 95. And to get to this Lovelock Cave area, you go off of 95 and onto this kind of very rural, just middle of nowhere road. There's no homes on there. There's nothing. There's nothing out there. And so the kids, they drive out there and they're just going to go caving. You know, they're teenage boys. You know, they are constantly looking to do dumb stuff. I mean, as a teenage boy at one point, I know what he was talking about. I know what those kids were thinking, and I'm sure all of you guys do who were teenage boys at one time. So these kids, they get to this cave, and, well, we'll start it like this. These kids that were at this cave area show up at Fallon Police Department. He's pretty sure that there was more kids involved or kids there, but he thinks that a few of them kind of just dispersed and didn't go to the police station out of just fear and, you know, like what they just witnessed. Why would they even want to relive it, you know? These kids told this wild and crazy story to the local police department, which is in Fallon. Fallon's a very small city, as cities go. And because it happened in that area, they said, listen, we can't go out there, but we're going to get the deputies here, the Churchill County deputies, which is also in Fallon. And he ends up showing up. He's the senior deputy that day. And he goes to take, you know, the statements. And when he sits down with these kids, and a few of them had their parents, so he thinks that what happened was they had this experience and then went home, told their parents, freaking out, and their parents are like, you guys are far too upset about this. We need to go to the police. Apparently they were in this smaller cave area away from the Lovelock Cave. And if you do Google map it, you can actually see these just small little openings of, you know, just, they were getting ready to go spelunking. You know, he knew two of these kids. He had dealt with two of them, for minor, you know, like trespassing or, you know, knock and goes, you know, knock and then run, stuff like that. Nothing major, but he knew of these, you know, a few of these kids, and he could tell right off that, as strange as the story sounded that they told him, that something was amiss here. What they said was they had gone to this cave system. They were going to go spelunking. They had gone into this one cave and they had been maybe 15 feet in. And they sparked up a joint. And I always say this because I don't believe that having drugs in your system has any kind of contribution, or a negative or a positive, to the experience. You know, like when Tony Aarons and Amber Miller or any kind of attacks have happened, it's always like they had meth in their system and that was a contributing factor. Well, they were just smoking, and that's what they were doing at the time of the start of this experience. All of a sudden, they are smoking their joint, getting ready, having a great time, and they hear one of their friends scream, and they turn to look into the cave, They don't have headlights. They don't have anything. This is 99. They have some garbage flashlights. They turn and look, and they see this just human-like figure that's towering over their friend. Grab one of the friends and grab another. Apparently he had grabbed like two of these kids. And as they're running out of the cave, because they're in fear, they see this huge humanoid creature, and one of them says, "I think it bit our friend. I think it like took a huge bite out of our friend." And so he's just like, this is wild. He ends up calling the two kids' parents' house, asking, "Hey, is A or B home?" "No, we haven't seen them. I think they went with their friends to go caving today, though." Okay. So that right there kind of sets it like, all right, there is something wrong. They are missing. We got to get up there and see, what we can see. So they end up taking the drive up to the area. It's him and two other deputies that go up, and they can see the exact area. They can see like scuff marks and stuff where it looked like they had been running out of the cave and stuff. So they enter into the cave, and they were not 100% sure if it was the right cave or not, because obviously they didn't bring the kids back up, the teenagers back up with them. But they could see that there was a lot of disruption outside of the cave. And they start to go in. Obviously, their lights are a little better than the flashlights they had, but not great. I mean, a mag light back then was good, but I mean, compared to what we have now, it's like a candle, So they start walking into this cave, and they're looking. They do smell a very heavy odor of animal. It smelled like animal, and not like a barn or a zoo, but some kind of animal. They get about 40 to 45 feet in the cave, and it kind of opens up a little, and they hear some noise, and they shine their light over, and in this far section they see this huge humanoid sitting there, and it looks like it's like eating off of this body. And they immediately, lights are on, service pistols are drawn, and they're yelling commands. And this thing stands up, and it's about 9 feet in height. And at that point I said, "Hey, was it hairy?" Like, I'm thinking Bigfoot, was it hairy? And he's like, "No, it was not hairy. It looked like it had kind of what looked like hide, but not like a loincloth, almost like shorts or something made out of like skin." And I said, "So needlecraft was involved? Obviously, if there's some sort of loincloth or..." And he said, "I didn't see anything, but I know what was on them wasn't part of their body or its body." And so they start yelling commands, and nothing. This thing stands up, and it doesn't step towards them. It's just standing there, kind of like not in shock, but just staring back at them. And it was a very eerie scene. He said, imagine being in a dark cave. You're 40 to 50 feet from the entrance of the cave. And you've got this 9-foot whatever in front of you. And how the lights of the flashlights, the 3 flashlights are, it's just very eerie. On top of it's eating a freaking human. All of a sudden it turns and starts to go into the darkness more. They're not pursuing, but they're yelling commands like, get back here, stop, whatever. They're debating on going to check. And he said, I'm literally being honest with you. We were debating. The time was not that long, but the time there was enough time to, do we get that body? Do we have enough time? Will our bullets stop that beast or whatever that thing is that we just saw? All of a sudden, now there are 2 coming out of the darkness. And because of the darkness, he didn't know if it was the same one with another one or if it was 2 different ones. And that's when they made their retreat to the entrance of the cave. And called for backup. They ended up calling the sheriff's station. And they ended up telling the sheriff what was going on. Hey, this is what we just saw. This is not, some April Fool's joke first, because it's not April. And this is not we are not messing around. There is 2 bodies in there and what appears to be 2 9-foot tall, very large humanoids in this cave. What the hell do you want us to do? Get, some other deputies out here, get, some of the local police department out here, even though they don't have jurisdiction, but get us help. Now, they're outside of the cave. They're by their cruisers. About 15 to 20 minutes goes by, and they get a radio call back saying, there are additional men coming out. Let them know what just occurred. They'll take care of everything. Just stay outside of the cave for backup. They don't want you to go in with them, but when they get there, they will tell you what you need to do. And you will listen to these men, because that's my order to you. And that's what I was told. So someone above the sheriff said, this is what's going to go down. In Fallon as well, there is a naval air station. And this will come into play a little bit later. So 40 minutes now from the time they left the cave, what shows up is there are 4 men that appear to be special forces, maybe Navy special forces. He doesn't know, but there's 4 men. They are not heavily armed, but they are armed for close quarter combat. They do have, they've got enough of, what they need on them. They're geared up. Obviously they don't have M60s looking like Rambo, but they've got, enough to where if these are the two things that are in there, these 4 guys should be able to take care of it. One of the guys, and also the vehicle that shows up is a black Suburban type vehicle with Navy tag on the plate, U.S. Navy tag. So obviously it's from the Naval Air Base. Now they come and he fills these 4 men in on what they just witnessed and what occurred, with the kids and what they saw. And, this may sound real crazy, but there are 2, maybe more, 9-foot tall humanoids back in that cave. But there are also 2 teenage civilian bodies that need to get pulled out of that cave. No sooner did these guys get in the cave, I mean, not like right off, but enough time for those guys to get into that kind of caved room area. Cave, not caved. Caved where it opens up. They could hear gunfire. They heard, a lot of gunfire erupting, and no yelling, just gunfire. And when the gunfire stopped, they heard kind of like commands and very articulate, what they could hear. There was no like la 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 la, yelling. But, da 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 da, do this, whatever. They couldn't make it out, but they could hear. After the gunfire stops, they see the 4 men coming out. 2 of the men have one of the civilian bodies, and then the other 2 are dragging one of these creatures out with them. Excuse me. And, the 2 humans that were the teenage boys, and they had what appeared to be like bite marks taken out of their skin. They looked like they had been like consumed. And those bodies had only been in that cave max 2.5 hours. Max. The least time would be like 2 hours, max 2.5. So for that many, wounds and consumption, these, he went over to, help the guys with this giant humanoid. They moved it, and the guy who was in charge of these 4 guys, said, get transport for the 2 bodies here. I'm radioing in for something to take care of, this. So he hears the guy talking to somebody over comms, doesn't hear the exact everything. And 2 of the men, he walks up to 2 of the men, the special force guy or whoever he is, walks up to 2 of his own men, and he says something to them, and they look, and they go to the back of the SUV. they get a bag out of there, and they walk toward the entrance of the cave. Like a minute, 2 minutes later, back up, boom, the cave entrance was blasted shut. And shortly thereafter, a flatbed comes down the road, and a ambulance comes down the road following the flatbed. The naval or special force, I say naval because he said they were from the naval base, I'm guessing, but they were definitely special force. How they tactically went in and tactically maneuvered everything was really spot on. So when they saw the flatbed coming, and then they saw the ambulance not too far behind the flatbed, but not right, like they came at the same time, coincidentally, maybe a couple minutes apart. But he said, don't have the ambulance come down here yet. Have it wait out by the road until we figure out what we're going to do with this. We don't want any more people knowing about this or seeing this. So that's what you're going to do. Okay. He has one of his deputies go over, stop the ambulance, sit with him, But that deputy was told, do not say anything to anyone about what you just witnessed. And they load the 4 guys and the 2 deputies, because 1 deputy's with the ambulance. The 6 guys load this thing onto the back of the flatbed. And they guessed that this giant creature was, he's guessing, at least 9.5 feet tall, judging from his height and everyone else around them. He was at that point 6'1". He said, I probably shrunk an inch with age. Nude, except for this kind of loincloth, almost short-looking hide thing it had around it. And once again, no needlecraft, because obviously he's not looking for it at that time. But there had to have been some sort of something, because it was not falling off, right? It weighs at least somewhere in the guesstimate 700 to 900 pounds, just judging on strength of himself and the 4 other guys that were there. He said, at my age, I was not what I was when I was 20. I was strong, but I wasn't, bench pressing 300-400 pounds. And it had almost like a auburn colored hair. It had very long reddish auburn colored hair with this just full kind of beard. And it smelled like a musk, not like garbage or urine or anything. It was very musky smelling. So after that point, they get it loaded onto the flatbed, and it is strapped down and tarped. So they put the tarp over it, put the straps down, and strapped it so the tarp wouldn't fly off when they were driving. They're told, follow us, actually lead us. You be the lead, then it'll be the flatbed, then us, then your other deputy. Leave the other deputy behind with the ambulance to get the kids. Have him meet us where we're going when the ambulance gets loaded up and gone. And there's this small airfield out there called Derby Airfield. And they drove out to Derby Airfield in uniform, just like was told to him, the sheriff deputy, the flatbed, the SUV, the other deputy. And then probably 5-6 minutes later, the other deputy shows up. And 10 minutes after that, a helicopter lands. 2 guys get out of that helicopter, greet the other 4 men, and the deputies are told to stand back. They are not even asked for, to help, even though they were going to help. But these 6 men quickly load the body onto the helicopter. 2 of the men go in the helicopter, and 2 of the other guys get in the SUV, and they said, thank you, yada, yada. I guess you're supposed to go and report to your sheriff. So at that point, they get back to the sheriff's station thinking, they're going to have to write a report, but we need to talk to our sheriff because we don't know what to put in this report. The sheriff is then tells them, don't worry about the report, but right now you are to go to the Naval Air Base here in Fallon. Report there. They'll tell you everything that you're to do, and we'll have transport bring you there and bring you back. And their 3 guys look at each other like, why can't we? First off, he's thinking, why can't we drive ourselves? Why do we need transport? And why are we going to the air base? Something's off. But they, that's what's told to do. Obviously, they don't think they're going to get snubbed out, but it was just weird. It was very weird for him for that to happen. They get to the Naval Air Base. They're told to wait in the van, and they'll be escorted to where they will be debriefed. Sometime within a half an hour period, some military police come and get them and bring them to what appears to be a medical wing. And right at that point, he's like, we're not hurt. Maybe this is where they do the debriefing. Maybe this is where, whoever is going to, address us is. We don't know. Or maybe we're going to see this body and get an explanation. The 3 men are met with a doctor who talks to them, gives them a once-over. And they're all sitting there like, this is weird, this is weird. And they are told to put these headphones on. And, they're going to play a series of information for them. Their debriefing will be in this headphone. And, then they can go go back to their station and carry on with their day. That's what they do. Now, from that point on, after they hear, he doesn't recall what was said. He doesn't remember what was said, but he remembers what happened. The two other deputies don't remember what happened. And, he then was really kind of freaked out. And when he realized that these two deputies didn't remember anything up until finding two teenage boys that had been hurt while caving. That's hurt. No mention of giant, no mention of anything, just hurt. He knew something was up at that point, and he was scared. And he knew all the paramedics and he remembered the driver. The next day, he asked the driver, "Hey, what did you do with did you bring the two boys to the hospital? What happened to those boys?" The driver did not remember bringing the boys to the hospital. They didn't get to the hospital. Apparently, this is his thinking that ambulance was diverted to the naval base because within a 6-month period of time, he questioned the parents of the two boys and the friends that were there. And anyone who was aware of what occurred. And no one remembers anything except those two kids being hurt while caving. No one, the two kids that he remembered, or not remembered, but the two kids that he was familiar with for like trespassing and, playing ding dong ditch. They didn't remember anything. And now he's getting really scared because he's like, okay, I know what happened. The only thing I can't recall is what was said in the headphones. I don't remember anything of that. I remember it happening. I remember putting the headphones on, but I don't remember hearing anything. Why doesn't everybody remember anything that happened? The parents of the two boys that were hurt now believe that their sons had, been hurt, and apparently time passed and they had eventually just moved out of town. The two families that, the two kids that were killed by these giant creatures, and they moved. He doesn't know where. He doesn't know anything about, where'd they go. And he can't question too much because he doesn't want anyone to be aware that he knows still what happened. And, now we're, 2001. And he's like, all right, now I'm going to
just move on with my life. I'm not going to remember. I'm going to block it out like it never happened. He ended up retiring, and he ended up moving. And he felt like, now was the time to share. He's been wanting to share, but with everything that's been going on, like I said, with the drying of the Euphrates, which he brought up, the Andrew Dawson, and he was very aware of like the biblical aspects of what's going on, with like the giant, the Nephilim and things like that. He kept making like quotes and remarks out of the book of Enoch or Enoch. And the one thing that made him 100% sure that it was time to share was just recently he found the Victor playlist, and he heard the encounter that happened in Maine. And when the father and the sons were questioned by Victor, and he said, I can get you help, this, and that. And they were sent to a naval base for help. And they don't remember what happened. When he heard that experience or that hunt that Victor had shared, that was his wake-up call. That was his holy shit. I was brought to a naval base, a naval air base, but I was brought to a naval air base. My two deputies that I've known for a very long time don't remember this. I've questioned them, but not too much. And why don't I remember what was said in the headphones? And that was why and when he decided to share. Give me a second. And for those of you who are not familiar with the Lovelock Cave or the Lovelock Giants, I will share it with you right now. So, Lovelock Cave is a North American archaeological site previously known as Sunset Cave, Horseshoe Cave, and Loud Site 18. Supposedly the cave is about 150 feet long, 35 feet wide. It's one of the most important classic sites of the Great Basin region because conditions of the cave are conducive to the preservation of organic and inorganic material. The cave was placed on the National Register of Historic Places in 1984. It was the first major cave in the Great Basin to be excavated, and the Lovelock Cave people are part of the University of California Archaeological Community's Lovelock Cave Station. First discovered in 1911, when two miners were hired to mine for bat guano for fertilizer. That's when it was called. That was when it was known as Sunset Guano Cave. First archaeological investigation was in 2012, and that was because the miners ended up finding some very strange artifacts. There were some very strange things found throughout this area. In 49, someone collected a name Robert Heiser collected organic material, radiocarbon dating it. There was some like duck decoys. 11 duck decoys were found in there. No date on them. They were painted and feathered. Like they were just created by, and that's very strange, if you think about that. There was a prehistoric sling. A hand-woven textile sling was collected by Loud in 1912, but it was not reported or studied extensively until years later. So right there is needlecraft. And then that's a little of the history of the cave system. There was some handheld grinding stones found, traps, sandals, nets, baskets. And now this is the tale of the Paiutes, a Native American tribe indigenous to part of Nevada, have an oral tradition that they told to early white settlers of the area about a race of red-haired white giants or barbarians that their ancestors referred to as Sitacha. The story was written down in 1882 by Sarah Hopkins, daughter of a Paiute Indian chief, in her book, Life Among the Paiute, Their Wrongs and Claims. These giants were described as being vicious, unfriendly, and cannibalistic. In this story, the Paiutes speak of a great battle that took place which led to the extermination at the site known today as Lovelock Cave. During the early part of the 20th century, archaeologists found thousands of artifacts inside the cave. The Sitachi, or Saduka, literally translate as tall eaters in northern Paiute. It's spelled Sitecah. So cha. Siticha. The tull is a fibrous water plant, which, according to legend, was woven by the giants into rafts in order to escape attacks by the Paiute. They used rafts to navigate what remained of the then Lake Lawton, an ancient lake that was once covered most of northern Nevada during the last ice age. And a lot of that evidence had been suppressed, according to ancientorigins.net history of, as the Paiute tale goes, after years of warfare, all the tribes in the area joined together to rid themselves of these giants. One day, as the tribes chased down one of the last remaining red-haired giants that took refuge in the cave, the Paiutes demanded their enemy come out of the cave and fight, but the giants refused. The coalition of tribes proceeded to shoot arrows at them while starting a large fire at the mouth of the cave. The smoke drove out a few, who died in a hail of arrows, while the rest were all either burned alive or asphyxiated. Over time, the entrance of the cave would collapse, leaving it accessible only to bats and cut off from human contact. So then at the point in prehistoric times, that cave, Lovelock Cave, was actually under that Lake Lawton. But I forgot what I was going to say. The American History Museum or whatever, AHM or whatever it is, they've hidden so much artifacts from these giants. But it's been passed down from years, like, and then to have all this archaeological finds in the area is truly amazing as well. But where these kids had their experience in this former deputy, Lovelock Cave is up from where this happened. There's another little small cave system. So all these caves supposedly just spread out with like a spider web of tunnels underneath the earth. And I mean, I don't doubt it one bit. I imagine the majority of cave systems that are underground are connected somehow, even though it's maybe not be able to navigate by man. Because there is so little that we know of our planet. We know a little bit about the top side, but we don't know underneath the ground. We don't know our ocean. We know more about the friggin' moon than we do about our ocean or outer space. So yeah, that's the history of Lovelock Cave, the history of the Lovelock Giants. And that is a former Churchill County Sheriff Deputy's experience. And it's terrifying. It's terrifying to even think that at one point he had no idea why no one could remember things, and things kind of just went kind of off the chart for him. Like, what the hell is going on? Am I going crazy? And then to hear that, to hear other stories about giants and then this and that and Dogman and Bigfoot and crawlers. But then you hear Victor's hunt in Maine and you hear about the naval base and the mind erasing. And then I said to him, well, what if by mistake they never turned your whatever you were supposed to hear in your headphone? And he said, that makes a lot more sense than what I was thinking. He said, I was thinking maybe I just don't remember what they said. But why wouldn't I remember, why would I only forget that? Maybe they didn't play whatever they were supposed to play by accident.
And there you have it, folks. I do hope you all enjoyed today's upload as much as I enjoyed sharing it with you. I'd like to thank you all for supporting the channel. It is, after all, your support that helps this channel to continue to grow and go, and what gives us all a place and a chance to share our experiences and theories judgment-free. Everyone is simply treated with the respect that we deserve. Please, everyone, stay safe, happy, healthy, and ever vigilant. Keeping an eye on our children, pets, family, and our friends. These creatures are real. These events have happened. Share this information with those you love and care about, and it may just help save their lives someday. Until next time, never stop asking questions, never stop searching for the truth, and God bless you all.